Hey guys, it's Cooley and it is spooky season. It is my favorite time of year. It is the best time of year if you like horror films or Halloween or costumes or makeup or pumpkin spiced anything and pumpkin spice butt plugs. There you go. This is your season. Welcome, and we're in it. Hello. And today, to celebrate the beginning of the spooky season, I want to talk about must see Halloween films. I have a small list of films that anybody can watch, and then I have an even bigger list of adult films for people who like the scarier things in life. But this is my favorite genre of film to talk about, and I'm a big film nerd, so here I am proving that to you in a video. My boyfriend hasn't seen a lot of these films, and there's a lot of people who didn't grow up watching films, and I just think that that is a shame. So if you guys are looking for new movies to watch this Halloween season, or just scary movies in general, or just Halloween themed movies that aren't necessarily scary, I have a list for you, okay? And there will probably be honorable mentions. I might ramble a bit, but guys, I love talking about this stuff. In the comment section below, tell me what your favorite horror movie is or your favorite movie to watch around Halloween is. I'm genuinely curious. I feel like some of us will have a lot of the same answers, but it's just a fun thing to find out about. And I'm also always trying to find new, different horror films or sci-fi or thrillers that I haven't seen before. I feel like I've seen everything on Netflix at this point, so if you guys have cool suggestions, let me know. To start with, I want to talk about the movies that anybody can watch, even people who don't necessarily like scary films. This is a list of movies I watched when I was a kid, probably because of Disney Channel or just because my parents had good taste in films. But the number one on my list, and always top tier for Halloween, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but I have to say it anyway, Hocus Pocus. If you guys haven't seen Hocus Pocus, you need to culture yourself and watch it. Sarah Jessica Parker, Bette Midler, and just like the silliest, weirdest storyline about witches where they almost never feel like there are any stakes. So it never feels like anyone's actually in danger. But when it comes down to like hearing what they're saying and hearing what their plans are, these witches are evil. The soundtrack is great. It's nostalgic as all heck. And all of the actors in the movie are good. That's kind of hard when a lot of the actors in the movie are kid actors, like children actors. There's just so many endearing things about this movie that it does have moments where you're a little nervous and a little scared. But it's also funny and fun, and all of the evil characters are likable, which I think is really important in horror films, especially ones that are trying to kind of make fun of themselves as they go along. So yeah, if you haven't seen Hocus Pocus, do the thing, watch it before Halloween, because honestly, it will be something you implement in your life every year for Halloween. I swear, I promise this to you. Also, obviously, Nightmare Before Christmas. People always ask,
Is it a Christmas film or is it a Halloween film?
I think it's more of a Halloween film because you spend more time in the Halloween area of the film. But I love Tim Burton, especially his older stuff. I love Danny Elfman. His singing is so good, and the music is so good, and it's just nostalgic as all heck. I can't get into the Halloween mood without seeing that movie at least once beforehand. Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Y'all, Beetlejuice is so weird, and I grew up on that film and I loved it, and then I watched it as an adult and I was like, why is this movie named Beetlejuice when Beetlejuice doesn't even show up into the movie until like the third act? I don't know. It's a great movie. It's aesthetically pleasing. The cast is amazing. Once again, not a bad actor in the bunch. Young Winona Ryder is so talented. It's just a very I shook everything. I hit the desk. I'm so sorry. I hope you're all okay. Make sure, if you haven't seen Beetlejuice, you should see it. Also, they just turned it into a musical and it's on Broadway right now and it's trending on TikTok. Yes, I know this because I spend too much time on TikTok. Another honorable mention that isn't necessarily for kids, but it's not necessarily a scary film, is Heathers. Heathers isn't a Halloween movie, but it's a dark comedy with death and really, really dark humor. That's also a musical, but it's also a movie with Winona Ryder as a kid, and it's super good. Also, another Winona Ryder film, Edward Scissorhands. Okay, I'm done with the rambling, but guys, all these movies are good. I wouldn't be naming this in a video if I didn't find it very entertaining. Like, I'm not naming movies that I just watch once and then I'm naming movies that I've rewatched multiple times and you will probably rewatch too. All right, now let's get serious, okay? No more of this kitty stuff. Sorry for the burp. Let's talk about the movies that actually frighten me. First on the list is a film that is older. I don't know if it's necessarily a classic, but I think everybody should see it because it was the first of its kind and it still haunts my nightmares. This movie is called The Descendant. It's a group of women who go underground cave diving or cave like exploring, and they get stuck in this underground area, and oh my god. It is so scary, especially if you're claustrophobic. I can't remember if it's super gory or not, but it's definitely worth a watch if you want to watch something that will confuse you and scare you at the same time, and it's an all-female cast. So that's cool. Then, obviously, we have to talk about Halloween because it's Halloween.
The original serial killer series.
Which I actually don't know if that's true, but from the stories that my parents told me when they were kids is that it was the first of its kind, and it horrified my dad. I guess when he was a kid, he watched it in his like best friend's basement who lived like 2 blocks away from him, and they watched it at night, and so he like ran all the way home that night to get back to his house because he was so scared. I don't know, guys. Halloween is fun and it is scary, especially the originals. I don't recommend Rob Zombie. A lot of people love Rob Zombie. I am not on the Rob Zombie train. I'm sorry. I like gore. I don't like needless gore. And there's some scenes that he likes to put in films that I don't think are necessary. But the original Halloween films, they're fun. A lot of the deaths are really interesting, and they just really nailed making this guy who really isn't all that intimidating really intimidating. And I don't even think that a lot of the characters in the movies are dumb, which a lot of horror movies do, and this one just doesn't feel like that. And I also recommend the new Halloween film, but if you haven't seen it yet, my like biggest recommendation, I'm gonna say this later in another movie, watch the original Halloween first and then watch the most recent one, because there's a bunch of little homages to the original film and it will give you that sort of feel, and I feel like you won't be disappointed in it if you watch them both right next to each other. Because I think a lot of people are super not down for like new versions of films. People get butthurt about stupid things. But I watched it immediately after watching the original the night before, and it just gave me chills how good they were at like reminding you of the original while also taking it to a new level, a new zone of a film. I don't know. That's my little rant on that. Zombieland. Zombieland isn't scary. It's not even sort of scary, especially if you watch horror films a lot. When I first watched Zombieland, I wasn't a horror movie fan, so it did scare me because there are a few jump scares, but it's funny and it's interesting and it kind of takes away the horror from zombies. It's not a super deep film, but it's enjoyable and entertaining. Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, the OG, one of the first horror films to use practical effects. And wowza, did they get creative. If you guys are a fan of movies that they put a lot of work into and it's very obvious, this is that film. At the time when this movie first came out, all this stuff looked so realistic and crazy and whatever. But now it's like we have all these CGI effects and all these crazy effects. So you see this movie and you're like, look at that rag doll, look at that mannequin they pull through a window kind of thing. It's really endearing to see how much work they put into that film. And I do think that it is scary, and I do think that it's entertaining. Evil Dead. Let's talk about gore for a second, chat, okay? I love gore. I don't like needless gore, but god dang it, if Evil Dead isn't the most fun use of gore in a movie of all time. I have seen all the original Evil Dead films. I watched them all back to back in like one night and fell in love. And this includes the remake. Just like the Halloween film, if you guys want to see the remake of Evil Dead, I really implore you to watch Evil Dead, the original one, and then watch the remake right after, because it's different. They use different characters and they kind of take a new spin on the survivors in the film, but they have the homage to the chainsaw, they have the homage to the necklace, they have the homage to the book, and then there's still a lot of the same scenes that happen, which I'm not gonna spoil. It's worth it if you want to like kind of get a nostalgia chill from it, which is kind of my favorite thing when it comes to movies like this, is kind of just taking the older version of the film and then make it into a more younger, more now version of the film. It's really fun. That movie is very gory. Very, very gory. Extremely gory. But not, in my opinion, not gross gory, but gory. Lots of blood. Sweeney Todd. You guys know this about me. I'm a big musical theater nerd, and I love Sweeney Todd. I don't think it's a bad version of the musical. I think it's a fun, different, Tim Burton-ier version of the musical. The music is interesting, and the cinematography is bloody and fun and dark. If you guys like musicals, check it out. If you don't like musicals, take this film with a grain of salt, because I actually introduced it to my boyfriend, who isn't a big musical nerd, and he enjoyed it a lot. But it is a little over the top for people who don't watch musicals often. And Johnny Depp is actually really good at singing, and Helena Bonham Carter, if you guys are a fan of Helena Bonham Carter and beautiful chesty women, check it out. Obviously, I have The Exorcist. If you haven't seen The Exorcist, it's an OG. Great film. It's a little slow, but at the time, it was so ahead of its time that people were leaving the movie theater throwing up. It's very unsettling and interesting, and sometimes it's a little funny, but it's a great film. We have Carrie, I almost said Steven Spielberg. Stephen King, great film. Carrie is very slow, and then everything happens all at once at the end. The Happening, which is also Stephen King. Okay, anyone and their mom will tell you that The Happening is a bad film, but I don't care. If you enjoy horror films and you enjoy just kind of sitting back and just suspending your disbelief and just having a good time, if you can laugh at a bad horror film, if you can enjoy a good horror film, just kind of mesh the two together, okay? Think about Stephen King's message and just sit there and be like, this is kind of awesome. Zooey Deschanel and Mark Wahlberg are a couple in this film. The weirdest couple ever. The enemy is someone you can't see. It's something you can't see. And I'm not gonna spoil it. A lot of people hated it when it came out. I love it. I think it's so fun to watch. It's not great, but it's so fun to watch. Okay, and the last of the classic films that you guys should see if you haven't seen is obviously Scream. Scream was one of the first horror movies to be self-aware and be like, hey, we're a horror movie, and this is what happens in horror movies. They have a character that openly admits it in the movie that's like,
If this were a horror movie, this would happen.
and then it does. And it's just kind of funny, but it is scary too, and it is kind of gory, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's a very 90s horror film. I like all of them. There's not a single Scream film that I don't enjoy, so check them out. Also, MTV did a series of Scream, which is a little over the top, but I really enjoyed that too. All right, now I'm gonna get into some of my more niche horror films that I really like, that not necessarily a lot of people know or have heard of. Green Room, currently on Netflix. It's one of my all-time favorite horror films. Literally, like, all time. Sir Patrick Stewart, Anton Yelchin, the girl who plays Maybe in Arrested Development, they're all in this film. I think it was an independent film, and it's basically a film about being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Just like being really unlucky, and that's what scares me most about this film, is it could happen to literally anyone, and at no point are the characters stupid. Oh god, it's brutal. If you guys don't like gory, especially like realistic gore, don't watch this film. But if you like enjoy that stuff and you enjoy films that will actually like scare you in a realistic way, I would watch Green Room. The acting's phenomenal. If you're watching it at home, during the scenes that Sir Patrick Stewart's in, maybe turn on subtitles, because he's doing a German accent and he kind of mumbles. No spoilers, go watch it. I love this film. I've seen it 6 times now, and it still scares me. It Follows. It Follows is an independent film, and it is crazy good. The music in this movie drives the film. It's like a living, breathing part of it, and I love that. The script is really good, and it just makes you dread. It has this feeling of dread. It's not gory. It's not jump scary. Okay, I shouldn't say it's not jump scary. There's a few jump scares, but like completely justified jump scares. And it's just kind of eerie, and it really gets under your skin. And I really recommend it. I think that's also on Netflix right now. If it's not, if you have to pay $2 to rent it on Amazon, it's worth it. It's a very different take on a horror film. I think everybody should see it. Hush. No, I'm not telling you guys to shut up. I'm saying Hush. The movie's called Hush. If you guys have seen Haunting on Hill House, the sister from Haunting on Hill House who wears the glove, She's the main character in this film, and she plays a deaf person. So the film is like a take on a horror film if you couldn't hear. Now, I'm not saying the movie doesn't have sound, because the movie has sound, but it basically has these moments where you're like her and you can't hear things around you, and it's very scary. And it's kind of gross at times. There is some gore. It's like a deaf girl who lives alone in the middle of nowhere getting harassed by a serial killer. And if you like a strong female protagonist, this one's for you. Okay, so here's one that's super weird and kind of niche and kind of different, but I discovered this when I was kind of like on my big horror grind of wanting to see everything on Netflix. I watched the ABCs of Death. There is ABCs of Death 1, and then there's ABCs of Death 2. It is a horror anthology that has every letter of the ABCs, and every letter is a new story. I think it's like each story is like 10 minutes, and each letter is written and directed by somebody else. So every letter is different. So some of them are funny, some of them are really scary, some of them are gross, some of them are animated, and they don't tell you what the letters there is a fruit fly on my leg. They don't tell you what the letters are until after you watch the story. So you're kind of guessing throughout. So it's just like a fun film that has all different versions of what people consider horror. And 1 and 2, both good, both worth a watch. Just know that there is going to be gore, and there is going to be some that actually genuinely scare you, and some are going to be bad. But it's worth it if you guys are big horror fans like me. Ooh, one that I don't have on my list that I'm just thinking of, VHS. Those are fun too. Not the scariest films in the world, but very intriguing and interesting. They have a lot of the same feel, because it's like every VHS that they watch is a different story of somebody dying. And the last movie I'm going to talk about is not necessarily, it's not a horror film. It is a parody of what could possibly happen in a horror film. There isn't a bad guy, but a bunch of young kids assume that these hillbilly hicks are bad guys just because of judging them. It's called Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Tucker and Dale has Alan Tudyk, which if you've ever seen Firefly or Dollhouse or even something as silly as Moana, he has been a character in all of those films. He's stupid talented. He can play any character you put in front of him. I'm seriously serious. Look him up on IMDb, look at all the things he's done, and he's good in all of it. And it's so funny. It's so good, and it's so silly. It's just, you should see it. You should watch it. You should watch it. So that's my list. I kind of just put this list together last minute, so I'm sure I'll think of more while I'm editing this video. I'm going to make a list of all the ones that I talk about in my description below, so you guys can refer to them if you guys already forgot the names that I was talking about. Just a quick list of honorable mentions: The Witch, The Village, Signs, Midsommar. I didn't really like that one. We can talk about that. That's a whole video in itself if you guys want to know my opinion on that film. Hereditary, Quiet Place. Ooh, I didn't put The Quiet Place on there. That's a great film. Bird Box, which is basically Netflix version of A Quiet Place, but not as good. But yeah, guys, if you have films that you want to introduce me to in the comment section below, please tell me. I'm very interested, and I hope that you guys all have a really great spooky season. I had a lot of fun rambling about some of my favorite horror films, and I hope that you guys check them out. If you do, let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video. My name's Cooley Smiley. Follow me on Mixer, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and I will see you guys on the tube later, skaters.